Okay, I think we're pretty close to being full. We have 18 participants now, and I think I know we have more than that. We had a few that said that they couldn't make it today, unfortunately. And for those that weren't on the first call, this is the second call with this group. Um, in the first call, we went over a really basic kind of first draft of a plan, and then went over the survey questions that we put out last month and that we just started getting back. And it's been interesting to look at the different responses to the survey. And it's really, I'm glad it's something we did because, number one, it's always good to get public input. And secondly, especially the way that the questions were asked, I really think it's going to be something, the results are going to be something that we can use to help us, first of all, respond to the plan, but secondly, help us when we create policy or how we prioritize different things within the office. So the survey really, although it was meant to help with the plan, I think really overall will help us in a lot of different areas. So I'm glad that we did that. And what we're going to do is share the PowerPoint, share the screen, and I'm going to leave everybody unmuted. So if you want to mute yourself, that's fine. But at the end of each slide, which I'm not going to tell you how many slides there are because everybody's going to hang up, but there's quite a few, so we won't have to. We won't go through all the content completely on each of the slides, because the other thing that we're going to do is after the call, and most likely tomorrow, we will have this PowerPoint up on the county web page so that everyone here and everyone in the public and anybody, whether it's the media or anybody else, can go and click on that and look at this particular PowerPoint. So you're the first ones to see it, obviously. So any input that you're the first ones to see it in this format, I should say, because it is an evolving, changing, and whatever plan as we go along. So we can go ahead, Todd, and start with the first page, if you would. So this page is basically very similar to what the first one was when we met before. And it's basically explaining what the executive order is, what it requires us to do. And then down at the bottom on what we did, which is the survey, like I just talked about, and then holding meetings that we started in November and into December. And so that one's pretty similar to the one that we saw before. So this, the stakeholders, business owners / community input, this is going to keep changing as well. We're going to add people. There's some people on the call today that were just recently added to the different Zoom calls. So we're going to add those. And then, as you can see under business community, I've had some other separate Zoom calls with the chairman of the Washington County Democratic Committee, and then several members within the committee, people from the southern part of the county that have gone over this very survey as well. So the next time you see this page, in other words, there'll be more people on it. And I have a Zoom call tomorrow with several people that aren't on this list. So this will probably end up being a 2-page list, which I think is a good thing. The more, obviously, that's the intent of it, is to try to get as much public input as we can. And then the timeline action plan, we're actually going to change that. We're going to change to where we are now. Obviously we're in December. It says Board of Supervisors resolution. That's not going to happen. You got to have a goal. So we put it in there back when we started this, that December was our goal. But I really want to get more surveys. I want to get more input. So it looks more like January we'll be having the public hearing, and then February we'll be able to submit our plan based on what comes out of the public hearing in January. And then each different section of the plan is broken down. So this is all from the executive order, the 135-page book that was put out, and it is available online, obviously, to be able to look at that. And what I'm going to do is the next step with this plan is to take the page from the plan that corresponds with the slide here and put a little note. So, if it's like the next slide would have a number on it as far as staffing that's related to the executive order. This is our organizational chart. This is our current chart for 2020. Shows basically our staffing level and chain of command. And then this is broken down by administration, patrol, and investigations. And this, one thing that we learned in responding to this, to the executive order, is that it would be helpful to us to have another position within our command staff, which would be an Office of Professional Standards type position. Luckily, we have a vacant rank of lieutenant, and we'll be able to use that position and have that person, whoever we put in that spot, be responsible for internal affairs training and other duties as assigned by the sheriff, but also to review officer conduct, complaints of misconduct, things along those nature. It's already an approved position. It's in our staffing pattern for 2021. So we're going to try to make good use of that position and do those things. Anybody have any questions on any of that so far? All right, great. And then another part of the requirement is that, we have to include in the plan what our deployment strategies are. So that's a map of the county, obviously. And then it's hard to see. We're going to try to work that out a little bit more, but the county's broken up into posts, and they're numbered like 723, things like that. But it's kind of hard to see that. So we're going to change that a little bit. But basically what it does is it allows us to direct patrols to different part of the county based on calls for service and need for deputies in certain locations within the county. And then another part of the requirement is what are your calls like? What kind of calls are we getting? So that breaks down the total calls by incident type. And you can see that we're at 15,446 phone calls that we're in. We have more calls for service because not everything we do is driven by a phone call, but that gives you an idea of other different agencies within the county as well and what their numbers are. And then the next one's like total phone calls into the 911 center, and it could be the 7-digit non-emergency line as well, but you can see that they're pretty busy over there with 130,000 phone calls in 2019. And then our total calls for service broken down by town. So it's 17,519 calls for service. And the bigger the town, the higher the number, obviously. And that's the kind of stuff that we use to, like I said, direct patrol. So we know, we need more people in the Fort Edward, Kingsbury area, that kind of thing. And then down in the south, down in the Greenwich area, than we do in some other parts of the county. And then this breaks down just what the type of call or what the calls are like from 2016 to 2019. And, this is one that we can update in a month or so and put 2020 in there and probably take out 2016. But that gives you an idea of what our call volume is and what the calls are for. And as you can see, domestic violence is annually, that's one of our higher calls for service, unfortunately. And on the other side of it is, we don't have a lot of robberies, for instance, and things like that. So, but it gives us an idea of where our focus should be anyways. Anybody have any questions on those pages to statistics? Okay. And then this slide's regarding our central arraignment part that we started here at the office with the help of the district attorney, public defender, County Magistrates Association, and the Office of Court Administration. And basically what this slide is saying is that we have a centralized arraignment here at the jail, and it eliminated the need for deputies to have to, or troopers or village police, to bring defendants, to different locations in the county to be arraigned, and also required that defendants have counsel that first appearance. So it's worked out extremely well for us. We're only the second county in the state to do this. And we definitely think it was a great idea. And we were nominated for a national award for our central arraignment. So it worked out pretty well. And that's the breakdown of how many, which agencies are bringing people in basically to be arraigned. And the other thing that happened that was kind of unexpected was that what that really did was it cut our daily inmate population in half. So a lot more people were released, in other words, at arraignment that otherwise would have been held. So, it's not such a bad thing. And then what we ended up with is the people that are out back here, should be there. They're people that have order protections, committed violence against somebody else or a danger. So it really has been helpful in that respect. And then another part of the plan that's required is to determine the role of police, and then community policing and community outreach and programs. And basically, procedural justice is something that came out of President Obama's task force on 21st century policing. And fortunately for us, we already have done a lot of the stuff that's included in that. And we are going to change our mission statement to be more related to as you can see, the 4 pillars of procedural justice. And it's nice that, through a lot of our community engagement and things that we do, we already do a lot of this, like I said, but we definitely want to put that in our mission statement as part of the response to this plan. And then for our community policing, we adopted that in 2012. That's when I first took office. And, we put that motto on all our cars, a stationary letterhead, and as a reminder to deputies that we put the community first, put the needs of the community first above our own. We have a large social media following that we try to use for transparency purposes. So we can put a lot of stuff out on Facebook, for instance. We have 15,000 followers. So we can put a lot of stuff out to the community to let them know what we're doing here at the sheriff's office. And then this, the other thing I learned from the survey was that a lot of people they responded neutral, or they said, I'm not sure, because they didn't really know what community policing meant. So the reason that we went with this community first motto and everything when I first took office, like I said, was because I read about Sir Robert Peel, and it was from 1829, and they consider him to be the father of modern policing, and this is generations later, and from 1829. So I won't go through all these, but the one phrase that I use all the time is number 7. And it says that the public are the police and the police are the public. And we use that, I use that a lot when I'm out speaking to groups or whatever. And basically what all these 9 principles boil down to is that we couldn't do our job without the assistance of the public. So in return, we have to be transparent and open and have the trust of the public if we're going to be successful. And then he had 3 core policing ideals, and I consider this to be the Bible, so to speak, for law enforcement. And those, it's just, to me, it's funny how when I first read this and when I first took office, it was 1829. This was all written, and it couldn't be more relevant today, especially in light of what's going on around the country. Does anybody have any questions on that part? Okay. And then another thing we did to try to help with communication between the public and my office was to have a liaison to town supervisor program, where we have members within the office who are joined up with the different 17 town supervisors around the county. And that gives them a personal point of contact within the office, so that they could, if they're having a problem within their town, they could contact that, whether it be a deputy, a sergeant, investigator, whoever, and have a personal line of contact with that person. That's been pretty, I know the supervisors like it. I think there was a couple towns, as a reminder, when I did this, there's a couple towns that we still have to Had some new supervisors or whatever come in, so we have to kind of put that together. And then we were very fortunate, to have some validation from the Department of Justice about our Community First program. In 2016, we were awarded a Community Policing Week award from the U.S. Attorney's Office. So that was nice to be able, like I said, it's a little bit of validation that we're on the right track. Okay. And then another part of the requirement is, what kind of community outreach do you do? And these are a lot of the different things that we do. And we try to add to those lists, every year to try to do different things. Obviously, the COVID issue has hurt us as far as that goes, to try to get together in groups and have any kind of meetings or group training courses or anything like that. But that's always an evolving list as well. Sheriff's Summer Camp is a big thing that we do for community outreach for kids 9 to 12 that can't afford to go to camp. They come here to the office. We have a bus that brings them out to the Finger Lakes area, and they do kids from all around the state, and they go to camp and they learn different things there. Explorers Post, that's been a real big thing for us. And again, with the COVID, it's made it difficult, but it's for kids 14 to 20 that are interested in law enforcement. And we do a lot of things with those kids, and they learn different things from investigators that come in and volunteer their time to tell them how they investigate accidents, for instance, things like that. With our special weapons team, they'll be able to, meet with them and see how they climb down the side of buildings and all that stuff. So it's been a very good program. In fact, we had one of the explorers graduated through the program, took the deputy sheriff exam, and now he works for us. So it was a nice story where he came through that program. Sergeant Sullivan annually does prom crash drills with the prom season. He'll go around to the different schools, and he's recognized around the state as with the quality of the presentation that he provides the kids in school. And then some of the different community outreach that we've done. The fair obviously is a big week for us, where we can meet with the public, and we do all kinds of things like the child ID program. I think one year we did like 600 kids. We had, they gave them the IDs. The community forums, the district attorney and I went around the county quite a bit and did the heroin awareness community meetings. And then the senior citizens training, that's a big thing that obviously, unfortunately, every year people become scams of internet, different fraud that are going on. So we have investigators that are trained to be able to teach the elderly on how to avoid that kind of stuff. And Project Lifesaver, people that are prone to wander, whether it be an adult or children. We have deputies that are trained with special equipment, and the people wear a little RFID device on their shoe or on their clothing. And if they become missing, then we're able to help out the family and locate that person. And those are just some photos from some of the different events that were listed on the page before. Law enforcement accreditation. This is a real big one, because if an agency is accredited, it would be much easier for that agency to comply with the governor's executive order. A lot of the stuff that's in the executive order is covered by being accredited. So we're very proud of the fact that we were first accredited in 2007, and then we have to be reassessed every 5 years to obtain or retain that accreditation. And that's one of the things I tell people. It's extremely difficult to become accredited, but it's even more difficult to remain accredited, because every 5 years you have to prove that you've continued to comply with all the different standards that the state put out, which is 110 different standards. And they're administrative. There's three main areas: administrative standards, training, and operational standards. And basically it deals with that you have to have a policy that responds to each one of those 110 standards, and then you have to have supporting documentation to show that you actually do those 110 requirements of the different standards. And then while the assessors are there, they'll a third method of verification would be to actually interview different deputies and people within the office to make sure that the agency does it. Almost 600 agencies in New York State, only 130 are accredited, which, you know, it's a feather in any cap of an agency that's accredited. And I think, you know, I think it's on the next slide actually, but I think it's so important that it you know, with this executive order, I think it should be mandatory. It shouldn't be voluntary. It's a voluntary program. And I've been involved in one of the people on a call, Mike Carpenter. He and I go way back when Mike actually worked for Division of Criminal Justice Services. You can see it's listed several times in here. He's an assessor as well. You know, the importance of the program can't be understated. And one of the nice things that came out of this is I was talking with Assemblywoman Warner, and, you know, I was kind of voicing what I just said, that, you know, I think agencies really should be accredited. It should be mandatory, but I understand that not every agency, you know, can successfully complete the accreditation process. But the other part is, I think there should be some kind of an incentive for agencies to become accredited, more than just the fact that maybe their liability insurance will be lower. So the Assemblywoman's actually working on legislation that would prioritize access to funding, state funding, to law enforcement agencies that are accredited as an incentive. So that I'm looking forward to that. I'm kind of excited about that. Anybody have any questions on accreditation or any of the other stuff on there? All right, great. And then another big part of the executive order is related to training. And we're fortunate here because we do a lot of training. I don't want to upset my fellow law enforcement officers in the area, but I think we do more than anybody. And we have a real nice training room here. Unfortunately, we can't do a lot of in-person training anymore, but we certainly do train. We send people all around the country, literally, for different training. And as an accredited agency, you're required to have minimum amount of training per deputy every year. And then obviously you have to have training in different areas, including firearms and use of deadly force and use of force and all the things that go along with it. Another thing that we did that when this first came out was that we made sure that everyone was given de-escalation training, and it included role playing, and included simunitions, which are kind of like pellet guns. And deputies were put into different stressful scenarios and had to respond with how they would use force, if they would use force, and what kind of force they would use. We videoed all that for training purposes and were able to critique afterwards. Everybody, the command staff down, participated in it, took it very seriously, the role playing. And it was very interesting video to see, and I think it's great training that we're going to continue to expand on as far as the de-escalation goes every year now. We're going to make that a requirement. And then anti-bias police training, very important training, and we wanted to make sure that we had everyone trained in that prior to doing this plan and having a plan in place. And we also think that's important training that we have to do annually as well to make a difference. We have to definitely do it more than just once. So we'll do as part of our annual required training. And then I was fortunate, being the president of the Sheriff's Association, I had a lot of say in what kind of training we were going to do at our summer conference that we had in Saratoga this year. It was a little bit of a limited conference. Usually it's a little longer, but we only had 2 days this time that we could do it. But we had some excellent training, and as you can see on the top there, we kind of focused on affecting positive social change, diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I'll tell you, it was some of the best training I've been to. We had the first was Professor Edward Lawson, from the Black Studies Department, Suni Newpaltz. Excellent presenter, very helpful with the information that the Professor Lawson provided to help with the assistance of the plan. And then the other speakers that we had come in, Dr. Mark Montgomery, and his title of it, Rise Together, Stand Together, Positive Change During Social Unrest. Excellent presenter. Again, got to speak with him after the presentation. Love to have him come here to the office. I'm going to try to set that up so that he can do that training for our deputies, because it was very powerful, and I definitely learned a lot and was able to use what I learned to help me put this plan together. And then one of the sheriffs from Chautauqua County had actually met a filmmaker, AJ Ali, and he has a documentary called Walking While Black. Very professionally done video documentary. Again, you know, it was something that we needed to see as sheriffs and bring back to our office. And that's available, by the way, if you go on YouTube. Pretty sure that that's available for free to watch, but very impactful. I'm glad that we did it. And then also one of the important areas that we wanted to make sure we covered was responding to people with disabilities, whether it be autism or mental health issues or anything related to that. So we provided training from Niagara University to our staff to deal with individuals with disabilities. And it was very good training, and we definitely want to try to do that annually as well. You know, and this was a result of some of the things that happened around the country where police had responded to incidents with people with disabilities, whether it be autism or otherwise, and really didn't know how to deal with that situation very well. So that training was very good. Along with that, the training for the focus on emotionally disturbed persons, and all members, I said move my screen around here, all members received training obviously with the Narcan. And then in September, we had members that received crisis intervention training through the New York State Law Enforcement Assistance Program. And they can help with post-critical incident training with people involved in traumatic events. And this is kind of an overview of that course for the Respond with a Disability Awareness. And we saw that, you know, a lot in the responses that we've got so far. We have 116, I think it is, responses back from the survey. Several people have mentioned mental health challenges, dealing with people with disabilities. So I'm really glad that we did that training. But again, it's not, you know, you can't do enough of that kind of training. We definitely look forward to making that more a part of our annual training as well. And, you know, one of the things that came about from this, again, was I was talking with Assemblywoman Warner, the same conversation, and she actually brought up, you know, hey, you know, it'd be nice if you had a way to know ahead of time where people live, have their houses flagged, for instance, like I have in here, where people that need special assistance or people that have disabilities. So we're working with our records management provider to see that if we can add that to a list. We already have, I think it's a pretty simple thing that we can do because we already have the ability to do that. If there's a caution there for the person, we've been there and the person was armed or something like that, we can do that. So we certainly, if we can do that, we can do this and add that to a list of things that, so the deputy would know ahead of time that, you know, hey, the person at this address has autism, or there's another possible obstacle to communication there. And then there's a list of topics, and these are topics that basically are related to the executive order. It's not a full list of topics of training that we've done over the past year or two, because you know, like I put on the top, I think it was like 15 pages I had to go through and then pick out, you know, the different topics that we've already jumped on. And that's kind of why I said I'm very proud of the fact that of the amount of training we do, and actually all the deputies and all the people that go to the training enjoy doing it. And that's a continuation of the training list. And that's a picture of our training room that we're proud of. That technology wise, I mean, you know, it's definitely pretty cool. We can have all the televisions going at the same time and be able to do PowerPoint presentations, that kind of stuff. Does anybody have any questions so far? All right. There's only about 100 more slides left. No, I'm just kidding. It's getting down there. We're getting down there. All right. So policy development, that's another thing that's required in the order. We, as you know, because we're accredited, we have to review our policies every year, and we make sure that they're updated and are current. And then we use NYMER, which is the county's insurance conglomerate, basically, that made a program for us when we asked them to. So what happens is if a new policy comes out or if a current policy is updated, members log in with a unique username and password. They acknowledge that they've read the policy and that they understand the policy, and that keeps track of it for us so that we know that the policy went out to everybody. And it also flags it if somebody didn't read it or didn't understand it, because then we can send that person an email and say, hey, you got to read that policy and understand it. Use of force, very big topic, obviously, within the executive order. Our use of force policy is modeled after the model MPTC, which is Municipal Police Training Council's suggested use of force policy. So we have all the wording and all the guidance within the policy that's required, and then some. It's a pretty lengthy policy. It includes the duty to intervene, which is one of the topics that came up early on with the executive order, as well as to provide mental health or medical health to someone if an officer has used force that's resulted in an injury to that person. So it's basically based on a use of force continuum, which starts out with verbal, talking to the person verbally to try to get them to calm down, and then goes through different steps and different less than lethal options that are available, including pepper spray, open hands pepper spray, taser. And then we do have, in a case where someone is armed with a knife, for instance, or some kind of dangerous instrument, they have the option of 40 millimeter impact projectiles, is basically a rubber ball type thing. And we have people, obviously people are fully trained in the use of that. It's just another option that's less than lethal. So that's very important to have. And this breaks down our use of force for 2019 into 2020. And as you can see, if you remember back on the earlier slide, we had 17,000 calls for service last year. So we had 8 use of force incidents. So pretty proud of that fact, based on how many calls we had. And actually, when the state first came out with an executive law that they created in 2019, where we had to report, even if a deputy just pulled a holster out of their holster and didn't point it at anyone or anything else, we had to report that. So, or the taser, if a deputy takes out the taser, doesn't point it at anyone, that's included in this. So having only 8 of those out of 17,500 calls for service is pretty good. And so you can see we had 2 taser activations, deployments where someone was actually tased. And that was, out of those 8. So all the other ones are just unholstering only. So they're following the use of force policy for sure. Body cameras, right up there with accreditation for me as far as what's required. Long been a proponent of body cameras. We've had them for years. We just upgraded in 2019 to our body worn camera and taser program. It helps us comply with the discovery laws, which means all the stuff that we have to get to the district attorney when someone's arrested, This offers cloud-based unlimited storage, which is a huge concern for a lot of different agencies. But that $330,000 is over 5 years, and it includes upgrading equipment after two years, I think it is, 2 to 3 years. They'll upgrade all the cameras and all that stuff. Excellent program that we have. The stuff is, the videos are automatically tagged through the CAD system with a case number and a call type. So the deputy doesn't have to do that. The other important thing is that they'll automatically start recording if the emergency lights in the patrol car are turned on, or if the deputy pulls the taser out, or if he draws his or her duty weapon from the holster, it'll automatically turn on the camera. So that's very important, especially in the heat of the moment in a life and death situation. You don't want to have to, hold on a second, I got to turn my camera on, number one. Or again, it goes to the public trust kind of thing where, this doesn't, it takes it out of the hands of the deputy. It automatically turns it on. And then even along with that, any other deputy within 30 feet, it's going to turn their camera on as well. So very important stuff. And then the other thing is when they come in at the end of the shift and they dock their camera, automatically uploads all those videos. The deputy doesn't have to do anything to the cloud. So as you can see, just about a year, I already have 15,000 videos that have been uploaded. So, it's a lot of records. And fortunately for us, it's a lot of recordings of men and women that work for this office out acting professionally, basically, is what it comes down to. It's verification. School resource officers, we just started that a couple years ago. Yep, in 2018. We have 5 now. Again, it's one of the best programs that we have. You talk to any of the superintendents, and for that fact, any of the deputies that do this. There's no better way to build and promote a trusting relationship other than to have deputies in uniform in the schools, being the good guy, being there to help kids. And the one thing that we made sure we put in the policy in the middle there is that they're to refrain completely from functioning as a school disciplinarian. In fact, if a kid does something wrong to the point where we need to intervene and have a deputy make an arrest or something like that, another deputy is going to go to the school and do that, not the school resource officer. He's not going to be a disciplinarian, and it's worked out great. And we have they went through full training, the same kind of training that the teachers go through, as far as the different, where is it? Yeah, I'm not, oh, there it is, a therapeutic crisis intervention policy. Yeah. So they go through the same training that the faculty does basically in the schools. So last thing you want to do is go hands-on with a kid. They don't have tasers. They don't have pepper spray. They don't have anything like that. They're there to build that relationship. And we currently contract with Argyle, Greenwich, Hartford, and Whitehall. Sorry. Hudson Falls. I knew I missed one. Thank you, Todd. Okay, demographics, another part of the plan, the order that's required. So we went through our records management system, looked at our arrests, looked at race, looked at gender, and the next page shows arrest data for the 4 years. Kind of hard to see. I'm going to try to fix that slide so it's a little bit better. But those are the numbers of people that were charged from 2017 to 2020. So as you can see, percentage wise, oh, and the other thing that was on the slide before that, that number could be, regardless, white or black or Hispanic or whatever race or ethnicity, that could be one person being arrested several times. So it's difficult to, look at the demographics of the county, for instance, and say, well, we're 94% white. And then you look at the arrest data and see that we arrested 551 people, 26 of those people were black. That doesn't mean, like I said, it could be out of that 500 or whatever the number was for the number white, it could be the same person regardless of color, is my point. So we didn't come across anything that really we didn't already know with this data. And then recruiting and supporting excellent personnel is the title of another requirement within the executive order. And basically what the next two slides do is just say that we are bound by New York State civil service law as far as hiring. So someone has to be an applicant, take a test, get on a list, and then the list is scored and grouped, and we have to pick within the top three. Personally, I don't like that system, and the Sheriff's Association is actively trying to work with the state to make this test a pass-fail. If we're going to get a more diverse workforce, we have to, first of all, be able to open up to a larger area, which is something that we did up until a few years ago. In other words, you had to live in Washington County to get hired by the Sheriff's Office. That really limited our pool. I went to the board agreed, so we opened it up to contiguous counties. So now we can use, Saratoga, Warren, Essex, Hamilton, any of the Rensselaer, and that has helped us to have a bigger pool to choose from, and actually over time, hopefully, have a more diverse workforce. And those are the population demographics, and then the demographics for the Sheriff's Office. But we think that, hopefully the state will agree. They'll go to a pass-fail test so that we'll have a whole list that we can choose from. And I think that, personally, I think that makes more sense, but we'll see. We'll see what the state does. Law enforcement assisted diversion programs, another requirement. Happy to say that, we recognized the issue that we were having with heroin several years ago. We formed a partnership with the Center for Discovery and the district attorney and I, the Council for Prevention, Alternative Sentencing, started out as the Hometown versus Heroin group. They received a grant, $280,000 from Oasis, and it was able to help them quite a bit. It's evolved now into a group of probably 100 people, I think. And it's been very helpful, especially to people that are seeking treatment. And the other thing that we did was we looked at alternatives to incarceration. So again, working with the district attorney, alternative sentencing, we looked at, what other pathways do we have instead of jail for somebody if it's their first time offense or if they're committing a crime that's related to their addiction. Really, the place for them really isn't out back here in a jail, it's in treatment. So it's a pretty successful program. We're pretty proud of it. And it's something we want to build on. Reporting police misconduct, that's another issue within the plan. Obviously, we have policy and things in place for people to report that. We have had that. But one thing that we looked at was, maybe it's not the best. So let's add a link on our webpage called Compliments and Complaints. So people can log on, whether it's good or bad, and send anonymously if they'd like an email, or they can send this new email address that we set up, which is contactsheriff@washingtoncountiny.gov. They can use that to send an email with complaints or praise. And that's where that new position that we were talking about, the Office of Professional Standards, would come in. That somebody, dedicated to looking at that, and that's their job, is to deal with that kind of thing, really would be very helpful to the command staff. And then the next page is just a screenshot. That's if somebody clicks on that compliment or complaint, this form will pop up, and they'll be able to put in what it is. As you can see, what is it, whether it's a compliment, complaint, whether they want to be contacted, And then the information, it's too much to put on one page, but the information below where it's free form and it can write in whatever happened and whether it was good or bad. But we think, that's something that came out of this executive order. And I think it's a good thing to have to let us know how we're doing. And then, crime prevention through environmental design, that's part of the plan requirement as well. Some of the things that we do property checks throughout the county. We have 3 canines. They go out and do sweeps at different locations. The school resource officers fall under this. And then we have mobile speed trailers, which ironically in the survey, several people wrote in there as one of their top concerns is speeding in the area where they live. So we have the mobile speed trailers that we can move around and speed signs. We can move them around and we can collect data on, who's speeding where and when, and then set up enforcement. Hate crimes, fortunately, the most important thing on this page is down on the bottom there. This is data from the state. So it starts in 2014 until 2018. We don't have after that, but we had 1 reported hate crime in 2014 and then none in the 15, 16, 17, 18. But we do have a full policy that is required by accreditation again, that you have a full policy that covers how hate crimes are reported, investigated, and tracked. Problem-oriented policing and hotspot policing. This is part of the executive order that really, I think, kind of is more related to the urban area or a larger city. But in our case, we direct patrols kind of based on what we said about the map there for burglaries, larcenies, that kind of stuff. And then also other examples would be like Log Bay Day up in Lake George. That was a situation where we put a lot of deputies up there, ended up closing that down. And then Eagleville is another issue for us annually where we direct a lot of patrols down there to try to stop the shenanigans that are going on down there. Anybody have any questions on that stuff? All right. And then this is part of the requirement as well, that we have officer wellness, that we have people that are trained on peer counseling. I think we have 3, maybe 4 members that are trained in that. And they also provide critical incident stress debriefing. And they use those tools with the public as well. But also, the deputies unfortunately see a lot of bad stuff when they're out there working. So they have to have, we feel we have to have people that can help them in those situations. And that's it. So there will be more, obviously, with the results from the survey. There'll be more that we'll be adding to the plan. And we're gonna, I think I mentioned it earlier, but I know some people joined after. We're also gonna extend the time to have the surveys turned in throughout December, and then kind of move that timetable back. So hopefully you'll all be able to meet again, and the next time you meet, for instance, the timetable will be different, and it'll show that we've extended that out a little further. So if anyone has anything related to what they think about where we're at, or if we're headed in the right direction, or if there's something that we're overlooking, I'd appreciate any input that anybody had.
Yeah, Jeff.
Yes, sir.
Just real quickly, the body cam technology is amazing.
Yeah.
Like that has to be the community's best friend and your best friend, because if that is happening, and I know it is, like you said, like you reported, it's stellar.
Yeah.
It's just incredible to be able to know exactly what's going on. And are you saying that all your officers wear these?
Yeah, all deputies, all uniform members. So all deputies and all sergeants wear them. And the one thing that I forgot that you just just came to me while you were talking is the command staff does random audits. So with this software, we can go in and look at body camera video from, from whenever, anything that's in there, and just take random videos of whether it's a traffic stop or whatever it is, and then watch the deputy interact with the person. And I'll tell you, funny, the way it happens a lot is deputies will walk by my office here, and for whatever reason, they don't want to make eye contact with the sheriff apparently, but they'll just walk by, and I'll have just seen a video like a week before or whatever, and I'll say, hey, come on here for a second. So they come in and I'll say, I'll tell you, and honestly, 9 times out of 10, it's watching the videos, the way that the men and women that work here treat the public is just, I'm very proud. And I think it's something that validates that. And they'll come in and I'll say, hey, I watched a video of you the other day at a car stop, and the guy was giving you a hard time, and you handle it perfectly. Thank you for doing what you do out there, and it really is, for us anyways, that's what it's been. It's been validation of people out there doing the right thing.
Yeah, I love it. Lastly, for me, this new position that you're talking about that's going to be lieutenant, what pool of people are you drawing this position from? And, will it be a police officer?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a vacant lieutenant's spot. So civil service wise, the person has to meet certain criteria to be in that position. And then they'll have to take an exam and pass it. So it's called a provisionary appointment. So we have 4 people that we interviewed last week, a senior investigator, 2 investigators, and a patrol sergeant. So it'll be one of those 4. We have a process. We have a promotion panel, if you will, and we ask the same questions. I think we had about 30 questions that we ask each one, the same questions, and we score them. We look at prior work history, different things like that, and then we make an appointment based on that.
And that's how you kind of keep them neutral? Is that the questions are to create that?
Yeah, the question, I'll tell you, the interview process, it's not what we use to choose the person, but it's an important part of the process. And what's nice about it is we do that, like when we hire a deputy, we do that. So we'll have 5 people on the panel, ask each candidate 25 questions, and then we score them, each one of those questions. And it's amazing because the raters, all the people that are doing this, are very close in their scoring. So it's very telling. At the end, you'll have candidate A, B, C, and we'll score them all very close to each other. So, and your ability to interview and answer the questions and stuff is important. But like I said, it's just part of the process. So it's more important is the work history and the other things, years of service and that kind of stuff.
Thanks a lot. A+ for me.
Thank you, sir.
Sheriff,
Yes, Don.
I think creating an Office of Professional Responsibility, I think that's a key. I did it for 6 years with the Marshal Service, and the independence that they have to go out and do their job. It not only adds integrity to the agency, but to the public, because I just reported to the director, and that was my direct link. So there was constant communication on what was going on. The other thing I noticed in the surveys that I looked at was I don't think a lot of people understand your training programs and what they do, because a lot of talk about training for systemic racism and de-escalation. And, talking to you and seeing what you had on there, I don't know how you get the word out to educate the public, but I don't think they understand the depth of the training your deputies go through.
Yeah, I agree, and that's apparent through the survey as well. That's one of the things that the survey has helped us, because people don't know how to answer that question because they don't know what the training is. So that's why this plan, once we do the public or prior to the public hearing, having this plan available on our webpage And, you know, we put it out on social media and in the different media, whether it's the Post-Star or anybody else, that's on there. You know, anyone can go and look at what I just showed you starting tonight or tomorrow. And so that, you're right, that'll be helpful, and especially if they're going to do the survey. But it was kind of, you know, we wanted to get the survey out there as well and kind of get a general feel of how people, how much people knowledge they had, like to your point, of what we do at the office. So that'll be very helpful, I think.
I think a lot of it is they didn't understand how much training you go through.
Right.
The other thing I like about the body cams, and I'll use the term rogue officer, but if you have one, you can identify one pretty quickly
Oh, yeah.
to the daily interactions.
That's
And
right.
that helps with your community police and everything else. If you have a bad apple, you know very quickly. There's not any guessing, you know, on who said what. And
Yep.
the few times I've been with you and looked at how you review them, I think it's fantastic. And that may be the best tool you have for community communications and relations.
Yeah, they're I can't say enough good things about them, you know, and I think, and the best part about it too, Don, is we have buy-in from everybody. I mean, they know they're doing a good job, and they know that if they have the camera on and somebody were to say, well, you know what, you were rude to me, or you called me a name, or you did this or that, well, let's look at the video, you know, and that's gonna answer that right away.
Well, leadership is the key to
Hey,
that.
Jeff.
I appreciate your leadership, Sheriff.
Thank you, Don. Thank you very much.
Jeff,
Yeah.
one of the things that is apparent when you deal with the body cams is that it works both ways. It protects not only the individuals that are whatever the situation is, but it also protects the officers. And having had experience with those things a long time ago, that was a critical reason and motivation to bring this about, because it's unbiased. That is it. What you see is what you get. And it's the reason for it in the very beginning.
Exactly. Yeah, and as I used to say with you, you know, it verifies those that do a good job, and it magnifies those that don't.
Absolutely.
And fortunately for us, you know, I'm lucky. Let's just say I'm lucky. You know, I got a great bunch of people. I know I'm not going to pull a video up and see somebody, you know, not acting professionally. So, but thank you, Mike. I appreciate that.
Marshal, Sheriff, that again relates to your recruiting and your hiring.
Mm-hmm.
When you have constant good feedback, you're hiring the right people. So
Yeah.
again, you're doing something right there.
That's right.
Yeah, and especially it's, well, you know, since you're in the position you're in, it's difficult to get people for what we pay them. Let's put it that way. So we hope that you know, that gets better at that starting pay, and the union, you know, agrees to the contract as it is and everything else, so we can bump that starting pay up. But even with that said, we're extremely fortunate to get people that'll come here for that money and do this job. So that's a good point.
Sheriff, seeing how the governor felt that it was important to have the faith-based community as part of this initiative, has the police department, Washington County, ever considered bringing on a chaplaincy person, somebody with that kind of professionalism that could just help you navigate some of the things that maybe you don't have the time for, or your officers don't have the time for?
We have not, but that's a great idea. Write that down. I don't know any other local agencies that do, but I know other agencies through my, you know, statewide contacts that do, and they have, you know, they'll have multiple chaplains that have, you know, 2 or 3 different chaplains. So 100%, that's a great idea. Are you volunteering, Paul?
Yes.
Thank you very much. That's awesome. Mike, you have something, Mike?
Yeah, Sheriff. Just curious, since this came down, I think last June,
Yes.
has anything changed, or has the governor put forth any other comments or any other any other things that he wants to see happen since last June to now?
No, the guidebook and the resources booklet that he put out is the same. I haven't seen any amendments or any additions or deletions from what originally came out. Thankfully, since we've been
Right.
doing this for going on 6 months now, and that's our fear. That's one of the fears. I say our fear. Law enforcement leaders that I meet with. The fear is that we'll get this plan all ready to go and ready to submit it, and then the state will throw us a curveball with something that we didn't think about, and we'll have to scramble to try to meet that plan. But we've been assured through our contacts that we have with the governor's office that that's not going to happen. And the other part of it is that the state, in its wisdom, is not going to approve or deny agency plans. So the requirement is that you have a plan and that your county legislature has approved that plan, and then that the plan is submitted to the state. So it doesn't, that's where it stops. The state doesn't look at it and say, well, you didn't do this, this, and this, and this. But, you better have your ducks in a row, if you go to have your resolution and then you have the plan submitted to the state. Because although they're not taking ownership in it, the requirements are the requirements. And definitely, I certainly was one of the ones that responded to this pretty quickly and wanted to, kind of embrace this, so to speak, to be able to say, you know what, we do so many good things here in this office. This is an opportunity for us to show people that, instead of trying to be defensive and look at, the different things that we have to do, So I think it's been a great experience so far. And, I'm fortunate to have people like yourself and everybody else on this team that's helping with it as well. And I do have some more. I think I might have mentioned it earlier, and again, some people are on, but I have another Zoom call tomorrow with a different group. And that's, I found that to be pretty helpful. Like, I've met with some other different groups, and people have been very open and honest and helpful. So far it's been a pretty good process, but yeah, it's a long answer to your question, which is no, there hasn't been any change to the plan.
Sheriff, I'm sorry that I joined late. I apologize to you and the rest of the good folks on this call. Did you have a chance to timeline what's going to happen next? What's going forward?
Yeah. So well, you didn't miss it then, because the timeline is not correct with this, because we actually we're going to expand the timeline. A lot of that is based on feedback from this group, the other groups that I've met with. And that is that, we certainly don't want to give the impression that this is being rushed, which again, we're 6 months in, so I don't think we're rushing. But the public comment period is very important, and we have the second half of November that people could comment. I want to give all of December. So we're going to let people turn in the surveys right up until the end of December. They can get them online. They can email back. Thank you, Todd. Todd's all over it. That's the timeline. So actually, that's going to change from December. We're going to take off the Board of Supervisor in public hearing, remove that, and then try to do the public hearing in January, and then the Board of Supervisors resolution in February. So that way it'll actually give us another whole month to have more surveys, more input from the public, and add to that 70+ page PowerPoint that you guys just watched.
Great. Thank you, Sheriff, and thank you, LT, for putting that up.
Anybody else? I see Mike Carpenter there.
Great presentation.
I mentioned you, Mike. Thank you, Michael. Appreciate that.
Yeah, I was just thinking that, clearly that 135-page document from the governor's office, you took it to heart. We've listened for a brief summary of what was 300 slides at least, but I think every community throughout the state would be much better off, and as well as the officers that work in those communities, if they all took this document as serious as you are. You know, you've invested a lot of time and effort, even before this document, you know, you were doing a number of good things, but, you know, I'm just impressed with the commitment that you've made to do this right. And it will have some long-term benefits for the community, of course, but also your agency as well. So,
Well, thank you, Mike. No, I appreciate that. It means a lot to me. Thank you. Anybody else? All right. So we'll, I'm going to make adjustments obviously to this as we go along, and we have the time frame and timeline change now. So I really appreciate everybody taking the time to do the Zoom call. And the nice thing is, you know, the next time you don't have to sit through all those slides. We'll just go over some of the ones that'll change. But there's a few things obviously that we're going to add, and then based on the results from the surveys that are still out, based on obviously the other meetings that I'm having with other people, and then finally the public hearing will be the determining factor of what, you know, stays in the plan and what maybe we'll change or update or whatever. So again, I appreciate everybody taking the time to call in today, and then I'll be in touch by email going forward. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you,
Good
Sheriff.
job.
Have a good one.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sheriff.
Great job.
You.